Welcome everyone. Hello, here live from Malaga, an hour later than usual from the Plytix office. And today we're gonna talk all about Walmart, how to win on Walmart. As you have probably seen in the news lately, some big announcements came from the US, and we have a very, very special guest with us today, a true expert as a former category manager at Walmart. We have Claire Trellis here from One Stone Solution. Hi, Claire, thanks for joining.
Hi, thanks for having me.
All right, I want to kick this off a little bit. Claire, I know if I were to ask you what is your superpower, you would say putting other people first, which is a very, very special superpower. How do you think that helped you in your job as a category manager at Walmart?
I think it just helped in terms of lending a hand to vendors and realizing that it's more of a partnership, less of a we're Walmart, you're the vendor type of situation. And I'll touch on that a little bit more later, but I think it's a really important way to kind of venture in together and make sure that you're striving towards the same goals. And at the end of the day, you both want to see growth. So I think that just lends a helping hand in making sure that, you know, you're both on the same path. And I'm always there to sort of help out when necessary. And then of course, it's much more reciprocated when that's the case.
Very cool. And of course, Walmart is now kind of your past, but still kind of your present, because now you are the director of e-commerce for One Stone Solution, a colleague of Jimmy, who we had with us last week. How do you think, how would you describe your transition from that, literally putting all your eggs in one basket, into now having an overview of pretty much an ecosystem of marketplaces?
Definitely. I think it's really interesting how they all interact, and it's pretty neat to be able to see the price changes interact across the different retailers and things like that. The one thing that has definitely been a struggle is before, you know, I would be able to control what I wanted to do from the Walmart side. Now it's a little bit more of asking the current merchants there and things like that, which definitely poses a little bit more of an issue. And I obviously have the knowledge of how to do it, just I'm no longer able to. So that makes it a little tricky. But otherwise, watching how, you know, Walmart influences Amazon and Amazon influences Walmart has just been really cool. And learning the whole Amazon's ecosystem as well has just been an awesome opportunity.
Very good. And obviously Walmart now is one of the hottest, if not the hottest topic in e-commerce right now, with Walmart just announcing that they are opening their doors, so to speak. They're inviting non-US vendors to sell products on their marketplace. And I would like to get your take on how that impacts these three factors here. Walmart as a marketplace in itself, what does that mean for the consumer? Then the existing vendors, what does that mean for them? And the opportunity for foreign non-US vendors.
Yeah. So in terms of Walmart, I think that this is super great. I know when I first started there 3+ years ago, Walmart has these 5 pillars. One of it is habit, and basically habit is making sure anything customers looking for, Walmart has. And they were really going across the top 1 million Amazon SKUs and making sure that they had these available for the consumer to buy on Walmart as well. And a lot of these were SKUs that were from vendors that were more in the world marketplace, not necessarily nationally in the US. So we were, you know, going after single one-off SKUs that were sold from one vendor, you know, somewhere else in the world, and trying to track it down, and we weren't able to bring it in. So it was pretty tricky to be able to go and get these SKUs when we just didn't have the capability to bring these vendors in. So I think from a customer standpoint, it's going to be really great to be able to make sure that the customer has what they're looking for at all times. In terms of existing vendors, I think there's always a little fear here, but I think Walmart is going to have enough guardrails up to make sure that they're bringing in legitimate vendors and not going to really ruin the ecosystem that they currently have. And make sure that the vendors they are currently serving are protected. And for new vendors, of course, I think this just opens up a ton of opportunity and makes the entire marketplace just function so much better and really puts the best products out there.
And one thing for everyone listening right now or watching, what I would like to know, maybe we have the chat here. Let us know if you're currently selling on Walmart already, or if you're thinking about this. That will probably also guide the Q&As a little bit going forward. Just use the chat here if you have any questions. As always, the way we're going to do this today is first a little bit of introduction, what we're doing right now. Then we have Claire going really deep into how to succeed on Walmart, what you need to consider. I'm going to show you a couple of key aspects in Plytix, and at the end, we're going to open up for questions. So if you want to put in the chat if you're selling right now or not, that will be great. In terms of protecting the existing vendors, Claire, you mentioned that, and I think when when Amazon first opened up their doors, it was a big issue with counterfeit products, where all of a sudden you see a lot of fake variations coming from, China, etc. Do you think that Walmart is gonna they're gonna already learn from the Amazon situation and not have to deal with that, or is that just a necessary evil that you're gonna have to encounter either way?
Unfortunately, I think it's a necessary evil. We saw this even with just U.S. vendors. The trust and safety team at Walmart was pretty great, though, and was able to get on those things pretty quickly. But I think there is some learnings, just being more careful with what vendors are being brought in, making sure that there's a checklist that's really walked through in terms of who's allowed on site and who's not. So I think those types of situations are going to be a lot cleaner. But at the end of the day, someone always gets through, and I think we'll deal with it appropriately.
And it just seems to be the normal kind of progression as you're open this. It's almost like the child diseases that you have to kind of iron out, but they get to learn from some of the things that Amazon as a first mover kind of had to probably deal with that were unforeseen. All right, very cool. It seems like that the majority of the people that we're talking to today are already selling on Walmart. So Claire, for you to keep in mind as you are going through your presentation right now, we have true experts here, so you can get really deep into the nitty-gritty kind of things. And without further ado, I think I want to just open up the floor for you right now. Please take over and let us know how to win on Walmart.
Great, awesome, thank you. All right, so chatting through some how to win on Walmart, and first we'll kind of walk through the difference between Walmart and Amazon. Of course, they're very different as retailers with Walmart store presence. So we'll kind of touch on that to begin with and then go from there. So the one thing that I think is really cool about Walmart, and from when I first started, I've watched Walmart.com grow significantly. My first couple of weeks to enter a cost change in the system, you actually had to go to a shared Excel file and type in all the information you wanted. And there was one person looking at these hundreds of thousands of lines to implement these costs, and then would basically highlight them in red or green if they went through. Red, obviously they did not go through, and you had to go back and check this massive file that crashed your computer. It was a mess. By the time I left Walmart, there was systematic ways to enter a cost. I was able to go in and actually implement what I was looking for. You could do it in bulk, very easy. And I think that this just goes to show how much Walmart has grown over the years and how much they plan to continue to grow. As you guys have probably seen, Item 360 rolled out in the past year or so. And this is a great tool that's much more helpful than Supplier Center in terms of getting your items updated, adding new content, any sort of item details, pulling that information from there. And so I think also now even the ability to add videos into Item 360 for the PDP is a great new feature that wasn't really able to, vendors weren't able to do before. So all of these things just really go to show how much Walmart is growing and becoming, a big player in the .com retail space. But the one main difference from Amazon is that Walmart still has a lot of that human factor. Of course, merchants really run the store side and also the .com side. And at the end of the day, while there's all these systems, you still are often speaking to a merchant and working through problems and strategy with them. So that's kind of the biggest difference. While Amazon really relies on the automated algorithmic side, Walmart definitely has more of that human interaction. And this definitely plays a role in how to win on Walmart in general and how to get your products appearing. And there's the automated factors and then the manual factors as well. So we'll walk through both of those and first touch on some of these automated factors. So in terms of the automated side, sales play a huge role in whether your item is appearing on the front, top row, front spot of a PLP. So really, whenever it boils down to it, the more revenue your item's bringing in, the more likely it'll appear on the search page. So always something to kind of think about. And this also plays the longevity piece in the bottom right-hand corner there. The more your item's on site, the longer it's live, the more history behind it, the better your sales history is, the more likely you are to appear here as well. So also playing a role though is the title and attribute component of this. And titles here really just boil down to what you're actually typing in that search bar. So for example, I was the buyer for outdoor toys, which included things like swing sets. So if someone were to type swing sets into the Walmart search bar, I would want to make sure the items I want to appear have the word swing set in the title. If there is no wording in the title, attributes can come into play here as well. So that's another thing that's important to make sure that you're constantly updated and aware of. Other than those components, inventory, of course, plays a huge role. If your item's not available to sell, it's not going to appear. It's really important to stay in stock. As you also probably have found, if you go out of stock and come back in stock, it gets really difficult to hit that ranking again. So something to always pay attention to. Walmart really likes at least 6 weeks of supply, but really aims for 12 in most cases. Of course, with COVID, this became an interesting factor, but it's always good to make sure you're staying on top of that. And sometimes even here, Walmart would dual source between a owned item and a DSV item. So an option to make sure you're always in stock. And then also shipping plays a huge component here as well. Walmart's really pushing the 2-day shipping, wants to be competitive, of course, in the marketplace and just consumer mindsets in general now. Everyone wants everything fast. I've definitely made decisions on other websites where I've said, never mind, I'm not even going to order this. It takes 2 weeks. It's such a big component in our day-to-day now, and it's become this expectation. So Walmart really pushes the 2-day shipping, and then also the next day is becoming a bigger and bigger advantage there as well. And so this is something that they're going to keep putting more and more attention to. And if your item's not available for the specific ship time, they might not be as willing to show it. And lastly, in terms of advertising, of course, this is great because it's the component you can directly put money to, which I feel like everyone always likes to be able to say, hey, I invested, I should be doing better. And advertising with Walmart Connect, which used to be Walmart Media Group, is just going to continue to develop and advance. I think right now the best thing is WPAs and that self-service system, which really wasn't in place when I first started. A lot of it was you had to go through Walmart Media Group and kind of buy the complete package. It was harder to do one-offs. And now the flexibility with WPAs is so great. And the one other thing that kind of weighs into that too is there used to be 3 sponsored product spots, and now they're shifting to 6 in a lot of instances. So this is a really great way to be able to direct your dollars to making sure you're hitting a good position on the particular search terms you're looking for. And then of course, you're able to move your dollars around and flex your budget to make sure that you're really hitting the KPIs you're looking for. So jumping to sort of a different realm, a lot of the automated things we just spoke to were related to organic search, and the other component of Google search plays a role here as well. So looking at SEO and really understanding what you can do from your back end in terms of your Walmart setup to make sure if someone is searching on Google, your item might appear from a walmart.com link. And so this is really those keywords, things on the back end, making sure your short descriptions and long descriptions are fleshed out completely, your titles look good, everything along that realm. All that backend information is scraped by Google and fed to their algorithm and make sure that you would appear, should someone be searching for your item specifically by brand name or something like that, it would appear as sellable by Walmart on a link on Google. So a little bit different of a component, because in terms of things like short description and long description, that's not necessarily going to affect your organic rank in Walmart.com, but it will play a role in your SEO. So jumping over to manual factors and really the other side of the business, and this is what makes Walmart really unique, and this is just going to continue to develop with the new omni structure. And I think right now, obviously, they're working through a lot of changes, but this will really flesh itself out. And as the e-commerce side continues to grow within the omni structure, I think this will be more and more relevant. So the factors that really matter here, and this is all within relation to your merchant, are sales, profitability, reviews, and content. At the end of the day, you want to make your merchant happy, right? You want to make sure that you're approaching this like a partnership. You want to try to strive for the same goals. You don't necessarily want to butt heads with your merchant. So I think making sure that all of these things are as clean as best as possible is really important in that relationship building. So in terms of sales, obviously the same growth objectives is really important here, striving to, continue year over year to hit those sales numbers and continue to grow, incredibly important. But this also kind of counterbalances with profitability. Walmart is considering profitability more and more every day, and this is just becoming a bigger deal from their end. And as this becomes a bigger issue, you're going to see larger impacts here. So making sure your CP is what we referred to it from a .com standpoint. You have a healthy CP on an item level, on a brand level, is going to be continually important. And the more profitable you are, the happier your merchant's going to be, the more likely they're going to want to be to promote your items and make sure you're in visible spots. Same kind of goes with reviews. So Walmart has a 20 review minimum and a 4-star review minimum to actually get the item on a mod. So this is super important if you're looking for that store spot, and additionally just continues to improve your relationship with the merchant. And then also content, as we mentioned kind of with SEO, making sure you have enhanced content, you have good images, you have a number of images. We always like to have as many images as possible detailing out the item. All these things are really important, are just going to continue to grow that relationship. The other thing that's really interesting here is lifestyle images are becoming more and more important in this space. Walmart has a huge lifestyle photo guide that you can follow. And the more lifestyle images you have, the more easily Walmart can feature you on a homepage or for a particular summer savings event or any sort of calendar events that would be going on. So one example from my side of the business was we only had one really good lifestyle image of a swing set. And so anytime there was, a summer savings sort of event or a holiday feature on the homepage with a swing set, this swing set got to be featured. And it was great for that brand and that vendor. But at the end of the day, it was really hard for us to differentiate because we really had nothing else that we could use in this space. So making sure that you have lifestyle images is also huge. And then mostly merchants are able to boost items. They're able to change rules for particular searches and things like that. One thing here that happened with us is we had yellow slides, like a slide a child would slide down. And anytime you searched yellow slide, the only thing that came up was yellow shoes, like a slip-on shoe. And of course, this is also a yellow slide, but there probably should be both on that search term. So we were actually able to go into the system and make sure that both a yellow kids slide that is in a playground is also appearing on the same search term as a yellow shoe. So they do really have the ability to make sure everything's looking good from a search component. And in terms of a boost, they're actually able to take an item and say, hey, I want this to appear in the #1 spot on this search term. So it's great to have that good relationship. Great to be able to say, hey, you know, we dropped sales this past month by $10,000. It seems like our item's not really getting the visibility it once had. Would you be able to boost this? And they can make that decision if they're really looking to grow those sales and keep that sales metric up. So with these automated and manual components, it's good to take a look at measuring success and understanding how the whole picture kind of comes together. And so obviously keeping an eye on PLPs, PDPs, you know, sitting there, searching through your top search terms, trying out some odd search terms, kind of seeing just how everything works together and where you're appearing and where you're not is always just a great thing to do on a weekly basis. And then this plus all your back-end data in terms of looking at sales. Did a particular item have a huge drop-off in sales? Did you see, you know, something suddenly went to 0 units per week, but you know you have inventory in the warehouses? What's going on there? Making sure you understand those factors and then being able to communicate those back to your merchant if it's not something you can do from your end. And this kind of completes that circle of just making sure that everything's coming together and everything is as best as it can be appearing on site, and you know, keeping your merchant happy as well and generating sales. So I just wanted to pull up a PLP here and take a look at some of the different components. So at the top in that box with Chewy, this would be a brand amplifier through Walmart Media Group. And this is great because it obviously bounces down every other line. So it becomes the top row. A really great way to get your items in front of the customer on particular search terms. And then also you can see in the front row there, they have a bestseller tag and a new tag. These tags are really helpful in just making sure your item has visibility. That's one thing. If you have a new item, you can flag to your merchant and say, hey, I'm not seeing a new tag. Is this something you could help get up? And then otherwise, there's also the sponsored product there in the middle. And sponsored products are what I mentioned earlier with the WPAs. And these are just really great because it is something that you're able to change your investment in and make sure that you're hitting the KPIs in terms of things like ROAS or whatever your metric is that you're really looking to hit, and influence keywords here as well. So all great opportunities to really be able to get visibility, be in that top row, and get eyes on, you know, what the customer is really looking for. So just to recap a little of what we walked through, biggest thing, inventory, huge in terms of if your item's going to appear. It's always important to remain in stock. And this is also something that at the end of the day, your merchant's just going to have that much better of a relationship with you. If you have clean inventory, you're constantly feeding inventory, you're maybe flagging if something is low in weeks of supply or if replenishment got turned off. Really, really big, huge component in making sure you have visibility across Walmart. The other thing here is leveraging Walmart Connect for quick action. So utilizing those WPAs, investing in any sort of advertising campaigns. And then as Walmart Connect rolls out with more and more pieces, seeing how that fits into your business. Content as well with impacting internal Walmart factors and external search. So this is that piece that kind of has the Google SEO component as well as your merchants kind of feelings about, you know, whether they can actually use your item in some sort of event or on certain site merchandising opportunities. So here it's just something to keep on top of and constantly be updating. Of course, you want to put your products in the best light as well. So something to always consider. And then lastly, relationships matter. as I mentioned a couple of times, it's really important to be a partner with your merchant as you're striving towards the same goals, and make sure that you're going after the same things. You know, if they are asking to maybe hit a different profitability metric, is there a way you can repackage an item because shipping is really expensive? Working on those things together and figuring out ways to achieve those goals side by side. So that's really the gist on Walmart, and hopefully I answered a lot of questions, but kick it over to you, Tim.
Well, thank you so much, Claire. A lot of very interesting insights, and I do have a couple of questions. I'm sure our viewers have too. For me, it's just to see that everyone talks about Amazon, but obviously Amazon is a different ballgame because also a lot of search starts in Amazon, whereas Walmart is more of an end kind, almost like any website-ish. But let's get into that in just a second. Before we do that, I want to show a couple of things in the tool here real quick to highlight, especially regarding the video that you mentioned here. So what we see here is the overview of a regular product here from our Plytix swag store. And on the right-hand side, you see this is the account that we have been building out together as we went through the different webinars so far. So we see all of our attributes here. But for today, we're going to take a closer look at the Walmart media attributes. And this is what you mentioned now with item 360. You as the merchant actually have the opportunity to upload videos. And after your story with the lifestyle image, I think it's interesting how one picture can make the difference between a lot of money won or lost out on, just because there was this one company that provided the merchant with what they needed in this moment. They were chosen for all the promotions, whereas probably most of the other companies also have those images. They just don't make them available for you as the merchant at Walmart. So obviously in Plytix, you have your single source of truth where everything comes together. And there's a couple of different things to consider in here. The closed captioning is a very important one for subtitles on the video, etc. This video here, you can always keep track of the things that you need to include in there, because there's two sides to this. There's the required information that you need, and then there's the optional ones to explain a little bit more. But let's take a look at a different attribute here. And in this case, actually, you don't see all the info. We haven't enriched all the information yet. You see it's only 16% ready. So we need to include a couple of things, typically starting with the closed caption here. And here you can actually do two things. You can upload a file that you have if you don't have it yet, but you can also link to existing files. Now here there's two different levels of files that you can access to. In this case here, it's only the product assets that you have access to. So all the assets that are already associated to this particular product. However, this may not be the case. So here you actually have access to all the images. That could be a lifestyle image, because in a lifestyle image, you may have the swing, but you may also have the slide to it, which may be two different products. You may have, all kinds of different things, a little playhouse, whatever you have in your yard that may not just be relevant for one product in particular. And then you can just access to this, all your assets, link it in here. The next thing, the category. In this case, we have the video in here already. This is a product overview. The title that you want to give. Claire, can you tell us a little bit about the title? What makes a good title? Is it SEO relevant for the video? How does the title for that asset play into that?
I like to think of all these components as something that Google can back-end scrape. So I try to be as descriptive as possible in terms of the item name, making sure you include what the actual type of the item is, in this case, logo sweatshirt or something of that nature. I try to always make sure, I think at the end of the day, Google can scrape a lot. You might as well try to make sure you flesh out everything as much as possible.
Very good. Better safe than sorry, right?
Exactly.
All right, very cool. And as you see here, now we're saving the changes, and you see the majority is in here. Obviously, I forgot the language. This is, our closed captions are in English. Now it's up to 83%. The last important component in here is the GTIN. The GTIN cannot be stressed enough how important it is for item recognition. In Plytix, the GTIN here is actually a system attribute. It is similar to the SKU in that it has to be unique, but Plytix actually validates if that GTIN exists. So if I take a GTIN that actually exists, and I have it just like in a good cooking show prepared here that I'm reading off in this case, 3, 6, 1. This works. So now I have the GTIN in here, it's 100%. If I were to go in and take one that doesn't work, it tells me, oh, there we go already, fingers too fast. It tells me that this is actually not a valid GTIN. So you have an extra controlling mechanism because a wrong GTIN can quickly cause a lot of trouble if all of a sudden one number is the difference between a swing and a piece of ham. Obviously, you want to make sure that you have everything in order there. Again, leverage Plytix as your single source for not just one aspect of your content strategy, but really everything, because you can always draw on other departments' work to give yourself a head start when creating content here. Now, without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, and I want to open up the floor here for questions. And actually, I want to start with a personal question that I've been thinking about. It's pretty much when talking marketplaces in your sales strategy in the US, or in general, it's Amazon, maybe eBay, and Walmart are really the big ones that always come up. Now, as we've learned today, there's a fundamental difference between Walmart and Amazon. Now, with you being in a very fortunate position to have seen both the ins and outs of Walmart and now sitting in more of an overview kind of position, what do you say are most of the marketplaces, sales channels out there? Do they lean more towards a Walmart, very automated, data-heavy kind of site, or the Amazon relationship with your merchant kind of partnership site?
I think you have the retailers reversed there.
Right.
Walmart is the relationship side.
Sorry, yes. Just wanted to see if you're paying attention.
I think the best strategy is really to sell on every retailer you can. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're Google searching and not starting on Amazon, you want to give options. There is still instances where a price doesn't scrape immediately and maybe you're winning on one more than the other type of thing. And then, of course, there's the store component with Walmart, too. If you're looking for store distribution, it is great to be selling on .com to be able to prove, your validity in terms of your sales and your ability to actually grow a brand and sell a product. So I think it kind of is great to have all sorts of selling channels and really leveraging across each one. And we would see a lot of brands do a lot of exclusives in terms of colors or things like that to differentiate a little bit, but still keep the same products across each retailer.
Right. You never know where your next loyal customer's buyer's journey starts. So you may as well sell on all of them in order to really cover your bases. Exactly. Okay, cool. I have one more question here, and that is related to advertising. Jimmy actually mentioned last time that you can kind of cover some ground where you pretty much buy your way into a top position. You get the organic, the paid search, but the traffic to your website, and then you can kind of take your foot off the gas a little bit on those advertising campaigns. Maybe invest less money because you have built some reputation. How would you see that on Walmart?
I would agree. I think it's kind of lends its hand to the sales factor of it all. And at the end of the day, if you're generating revenue through advertising and your sales start to swing up, you're more likely to naturally appear in organic search without the advertising component. I think, the more you prove that your item has the gusto to live on that search term, the more likely you are to appear there organically.
And that then automatically kind of plays into the longevity, I guess, because you're building yourself a reputation there. Looks like you're popular. And then it's also, I guess, in the best interest of the merchant because they want you to be successful, but they also want Walmart to be successful. Obviously, at the end of the day, everyone's in business to make money. So they want to support the ones that sell best.
Correct.
All right. Claire, I know we're already 5 minutes over, and as always, the German inside dies a little bit because we're not that punctual. However, I want to open the floor to you for one last kind of word of advice. If you were to now change your role one more time and go from sitting in Walmart into now working with a lot of companies, if you had to become the head of e-commerce for just one company, what would be the first thing that you would do if this company already sells on Walmart to boost the sales?
Oh gosh. I mean, first I would set up a call with the merchant. At the end of the day, that's your best bet to make sure you have a good relationship there. And I think having an initial meeting, explaining your strategy, asking what the merchant's looking for and what their goals are, it is just a huge start in the relationship. And then I think second would be making sure that your products are just super cleaned up in terms of content and ready to go, and then start advertising. So I think kind of 3-step process, but getting in with the merchant's huge.
Getting into with your merchant, making that introduction, I guess, because you're new in that position, right? You want to make sure that that person knows you. That's a good advice. Actually, I know I said we're going to stop, but Kirsten actually has a question about item 360. This has been mentioned a lot throughout this presentation a little bit. Can you give a little bit more detail on what it is and how it impacts your products or your product listings?
Yeah, so item 360 is a system that's used for the suppliers and the vendors for Walmart. It is a deviation of Supplier Center, which was what was originally used a couple years back. And essentially, this is your hub for item creation, updating anything in terms of your item attributes, your images, your short descriptions, long descriptions, etc. It's kind of that place where you always go to if you're kind of checking in on item details or you're looking for to update an image, things like that. It's really the back end, and you're able to download your entire catalog from it. You're able to look at your scorecard for each individual item. They don't give you a roll up, but they do give you an item level scorecard that you can use to kind of adjust attributes and make sure your items are really hitting that top ranks in terms of content quality. There's really a number of things you can do in it, and I feel like it's a really good thing to jump into and kind of play around with if you haven't used it before. But it's kind of the new seller center that really bridges the gap between the store and the .com side and is a little bit more friendly from an omni position.
And I guess this is kind of the result of Walmart's push of that burden. Not necessarily burden, but like the workload of keeping the content clean, giving the vendors more responsibility and also more flexibility so the merchant doesn't have to run after them and be responsible for everything, because that also seems to be the direction they're going with, where information is so much more important, but it's a lot of work if you have to manage all of that for all the different vendors that sell on that platform.
Definitely.
All right, wonderful. Guys, thank you so much for listening. To recap, the first thing you want to do right now is pick up the phone or write an email, tell your merchant how much you love them, set up a call with them and go through your strategy a little bit. I think from your perspective, Claire, if a vendor messages you asking for a strategy call, kind of a discussion, is that something that you would welcome or would feel more like, Well,
I think it kind of depends on the size of the business, and right now I know Walmart is trying to get their ducks in a row with the omni restructure, but I think if not a call, then, you know, just trying to lay out what your strategy is, asking, hey, what can I do for you? And from the supplier to the merchant, and an email conversation is worth it as well, because I know they're kind of a little overwhelmed right now and might not be able to set up a lot of calls, but getting that conversation going and just making sure you're really starting to build that relationship from the get-go.
Very good. It's all about knowing how to manage your merchant, how to give him or her the information they need to be successful or to make you successful, which makes them successful in return. I think that's a good closing. So again, make sure, reach out to your merchant, get Plytix if you don't have it yet, talk to one of our experts. Feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn. Claire is always available. Well, not always, that's a lie. She's also human, but I know One Stone is an amazing agency and they love to help people out. So if you have any questions, please feel free to contact them. And as a last thing for us, before we stop it here, in 2 weeks, we're actually taking a break next week, but in 2 weeks, we're talking all about social commerce. When was the last time you were on Facebook or Instagram? Probably at least once today already. And social commerce has become more and more important. And we are bringing in an ex-Facebook and ex-Instagram e-commerce expert that now helps companies creating those strategies. And he will go through the ins and outs on how to be successful on things like dynamic ads, as well as Facebook Shop, a big thing. Stay tuned. Wednesday, April 21st at 4 p.m. Madrid time, again, an hour earlier, going back to the regular schedule. If you need anything, please feel free to reach out. Thank you so much, Claire, for joining. It was a pleasure having you. I feel like I want to have a merchant now to talk to.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate it.
Bye, guys. Have a great rest of the day and see you in 2 weeks.